You saw it on the ground, small, fluffy, alone, and every instinct in your body told you the same thing. This bird needs help. So you reached down, you picked it up, you held it in your hands and felt like you were doing something good. What you didn't know, what nobody tells you, is that the moment your hands closed around that bird, a chain of events started that you cannot stop, cannot reverse, and cannot undo. Not just with that bird's parents, with every bird in your yard, possibly every bird in your neighborhood. Welcome to Bird's Mind Theory. By the time you walked back inside feeling good about yourself, your information had already been broadcast. Your description had already been filed. And depending on what species was watching, what you did in that one moment has been added to a living, breathing, updating threat database that is still active right now. Today, we are going to go through exactly what happened, second by second, bird by bird, because what birds actually do with the information you gave them that day goes so much further than most people ever imagine. And by the end of this, you will understand something that changes every single interaction you'll ever have with wild birds for the rest of your life. Let's go back to that moment. You're in your yard, you see a small bird on the ground. It has most of its feathers, it's hopping awkwardly, it's making noise. It looks helpless. It looks abandoned. Here is what was actually happening. That bird was a fledgling, a young bird that has intentionally left the nest but cannot yet fly properly. For most songbird species, the fledgling stage lasts 1 to 2 weeks. During that entire time, the young bird lives on the ground and in low shrubs. It hops, it flaps, it stumbles. It looks completely lost. It is not lost. Research from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology is unambiguous on this. The vast majority of baby birds found on the ground are not injured, not abandoned, and not in distress. They are in a completely normal, completely necessary developmental stage. And during that entire stage, the parents are close, not visible most of the time, but close, watching, feeding that fledgling every 15 to 30 minutes, monitoring every movement around it, and monitoring you. The moment you walked toward that bird, 2 adult birds in the branches above you saw a large animal approach their offspring directly and make physical contact. In the threat assessment system that birds use to evaluate danger, what you did maps onto a very specific category. Predator behavior, not well-meaning human behavior, not helpful bystander behavior. The category that exists in a bird's brain is large animal approached offspring, made contact, took it. That is the same behavioral sequence that every predator, every cat, every fox, every raccoon performs in the moment before a kill. The parents cannot read your intention. They read your action. The moment you picked up that fledgling, the parents called. If you were paying attention, you heard it. Sharp, rapid alarm calls coming from the trees around you. You probably assumed it was random bird noise. It was not random. It was a broadcast. And it carried more information than most people realize. Research has shown that many bird species encode specific details directly into the structure of their alarm calls. The type of threat, its size, its behavior, and the urgency level, all communicated through acoustic variation that other birds can decode instantly. A chickadee, for example, encodes danger level into the number of specific syllables at the end of its call. The more dangerous the predator, the more syllables. Other birds hearing that call don't just know danger is nearby, they know how dangerous it is. The parents of the bird you touch were broadcasting your presence, your behavior, and your threat level to every bird within earshot. But here's the part that most people have never thought about. The birds that received that broadcast were not just the same species as the parents. Research on interspecies alarm communication has found that just about every bird species studied responds to the alarm calls of other species. Ornithologist Robert McGrath, who has spent decades studying this, puts it directly. Birds eavesdrop on each other's alarms constantly across species lines because the information is too valuable to ignore. When the parents called out about you, the cardinals heard it, the blue jays heard it, the nuthatches and the sparrows and the finches heard it, and every single one of them updated their internal file on the large creature currently standing in that yard. You weren't just announcing yourself to 2 birds, you announced yourself to the entire acoustic community of your neighborhood in under 60 seconds. Now I need to separate what happens next into 2 categories because they are very different. The first category is every bird species that is not a corvid. Robins, sparrows, cardinals, wrens. These birds process the threat event through location and pattern. They remember that your yard is associated with a predator event. They remember approximately when it happened. And if you are a regular presence in that yard, they begin to associate your specific behavioral pattern with the threat. Birds that used to feed comfortably while you were outside start flushing the moment you appear. Alarm calls begin when you open the back door. The comfortable, easy relationship that took months to build gets reset in a single afternoon. That is bad enough. The second category is corvids, crows, ravens, blue jays. And what happens with corvids is categorically different. In a landmark study at the University of Washington, researcher Dr. John Marsleff had his team wear rubber caveman masks while capturing and banding wild crows. The birds were handled and released. Then the researchers walked through the same area wearing different neutral masks. The crows ignored them completely. When they put the caveman mask back on, the crows erupted. Alarm calls, dive bombing, sustained mobbing behavior directed specifically at the face they had memorized. Not the neutral masks, not people in general, that specific face. Years later, the crows were still responding to it. And crows that had never been handled, crows that were not even born during the original capture, had learned to respond to that face. The threat information had been transmitted socially from bird to bird across time. If there were blue jays or crows watching when you picked up that baby bird, they have your face. They filed it, and they are still using it. Here's what makes the corvid situation genuinely unsettling. Crows are not stationary animals. They travel. A crow whose territory overlaps with your neighborhood may forage across several square miles in a single day. It visits feeders, parks, parking lots, schoolyards, and wherever it goes, it carries your file with it. Research published in the Proceedings of the Royal Society confirmed that threat information about specific humans spreads through crow populations through social learning, horizontal transmission between adults, and vertical transmission from parents to offspring. The study found that mobbing responses to a specific threatening human persisted in the local crow population for at least 5 years, and that the birds passing on the information included crows born after the original event. They had never seen you do anything. They learned about you from birds that did. A follow-up study on jackdaws, a European corvid species, found that even a single brief alarm calling event from one individual was sufficient to alter how naive birds responded to a specific person. Not prolonged exposure, not repeated encounters. A single alarm call from a single bird was enough. Think about what that means for what happened in your yard. The moment those parent birds called out about you, every corvid within earshot didn't just hear a warning, they began building a file. And that file can travel kilometers through a population, survive across breeding seasons, and be passed to birds that will encounter you years from now without ever having seen you do anything wrong. The database is alive. It updates, it spreads, and you cannot delete your entry. There is another layer to this that almost nobody talks about. The behavioral shift in your yard after a threat event doesn't just affect the birds that heard the alarm call. It affects the birds that are born there afterward. Young birds learn what is safe and what is dangerous from adult birds in their environment. Fledglings, like the one you picked up, are in one of the most intensive learning periods of their lives. They are watching adult birds constantly, absorbing behavioral cues about where to go, what to eat, what to avoid, and who to fear. If the adult birds in your yard have classified you as a threat and are consistently displaying avoidance behavior around you, flushing early, alarm calling, refusing to feed while you're present, the young birds being raised in that territory are learning that lesson. They are internalizing your threat classification before they have any independent experience of you at all. You built a reputation before they were born, and they inherited it. This is why experienced wildlife biologists emphasize something that sounds extreme until you understand the science behind it. The most damaging thing you can do to your long-term relationship with the birds in your space is a single visible threat event, not repeated disturbance, not deliberate harassment. One event, witnessed, called out, broadcast, and filed, can reshape how multiple generations of birds relate to you. Here is what you can do. You cannot erase the file, but you can stop adding to it, and eventually, slowly on the bird's timeline, not yours, you can begin to earn back what you lost. Wild animals do not respond to your intentions, they respond to your actions. That rule does not bend, no matter how good your reasons were. The bird you held that day never knew you were trying to help, but every bird watching, they knew exactly what they saw. If this changed how you think about your relationship with the birds outside your window, subscribe right now because this is exactly what this channel does every week, and I want to hear from you. Have you ever picked up a baby bird? Did birds in your yard start acting differently after? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. and share this with someone who has a bird feeder, because this is the video that will completely change how they see the birds watching them every morning.